Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of Art of the Beholder, a show dedicated to all things eclectic in the world of art, where we do deep dives into deep cuts and help you understand why damn things matter. I'm your host, Novo Day, and today we're going to be talking about art and music, focusing on Parliament-Funkadelic's fearless leader and the godfather of funk, George Clinton, through one of his magnum opuses, the Funkadelic album, Maggot Brain. To hash it out, we're once again joined by one of our favorites, Miss Alexandra Parsons of alexanderparsons.com. Welcome back to the show, Miss Parsons.
Oh, well, thank you. Happy
You're
to be
welcome.
back.
Before we dive in, it's been a hot minute, Miss Parsons. I
Mhm.
want to catch up. What have you been up to? I think the last time I looked at maybe an Insta feed, something like that, I think I saw one of your paintings in a gallery. Do you have some updates, some news to tell us about?
Yeah, I had a painting a month or so ago at a local gallery setting in Atlanta that had like a collective of different artists. It was really fun. It was so gratifying to see like Atlanta come together, then watching people look at your painting and then like taking pictures of it and just like talk. I was like, "Oh, this is so great." It really clarified a lot, just sitting back and watching it and being that the quiet observer and being like, yeah, man, this is what you can't, like, that feeling you can't give me enough money for, like, that's like,
Oh, that's why we do it.
that's why
Oh,
we
yeah.
do it. And so it definitely inspired me, so I went and I got a bunch more painting canvases and I started working on another painting, and I'm looking up some artist grants and looking up galleries and like collectives. So I'm on that like vibe, that roller coaster of trying to like get things moving.
Ooh, well then keep that energy going for the show.
Thanks.
And so we need to tell the good people why we're talking about George Clinton's
Mhm.
career and one of his very inspirational albums, Maggot Brain. Well, part of the reason is I knew you were a Parliament Funkadelic super fan. I
Mhm.
think the very first show we ever did, I want to say it was the Gen Z and the Future of Fashion show.
Mhm.
I asked you like, what are you wearing like these days or something like that, and you thought you thought I wanted to know what you're wearing
Oh yeah.
right now, and you're like, well, I'm wearing this Parliament Funkadelic shirt or something like
I
that.
was
I
wearing a
remember you.
Parliament Mothership Connection shirt, which I have.
Nice, yes.
I
And
think,
I was
yeah.
like, and then it's been brought up a lot, so I was like, oh man, this is I always wanted to do a show on George Clinton and his career, with his musical collectives, and Maggot Brain is very special and dear to my heart. And I knew that, once we became friends on the show, it was destiny.
Yeah, I think so. It was Destiny. It's an album that if you're a music head, like, everybody's gonna have to
Oh yeah.
fall in love
We're
with
gonna
at
nerd
some
out.
point. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Every music head and nerd and musicologist or whatever you call yourself, connoisseur,
Kinda sure.
connoisseur, always eventually, yes, talks about Maggot Brain, because Maggot Brain stands as a testament for when musical experimentation goes incredibly right, as it's equal parts dangerous and raw, and at the same time progressive and provocative, helping to pave the way for so many different forms of funk over the years, eventually evolving the new wave, and in a lot of ways, how we even have hip hop today. Now, before we can discuss, of course, we all need a little background. So we're gonna talk. Usually, I keep these background sections short and sweet, Miss Parsons, as you well know, so we can get to the discussion section. But I really feel like to really understand Maggot Brain, you have to understand George Clinton, because he was the fearless leader that was the Parliaments first, then it became Parliament, or well, their sister act, Funkadelic, renamed, and then they rebranded the Parliaments as Parliament, and then they became one, a collective that they
P-Funk.
called Parliament Funkadelic, right? And there's a reason that, well, we're not going to get into the heavy history, but there was legal disputes and all this shit. They had to
Mhm.
change names for copyright reasons, and because usually the label owns the rights to the
Yeah.
name and all that kind of shit. But let's get to know George Clinton first, okay? So George Clinton was born George Edward Clinton on July 22nd, 1941, in Kannapolis, North Carolina. Now, when he was first getting into music, he first named his group The Parliaments with a the, and it was named after, of course, the fucking cigarette company. And it was, talk about humble beginnings. You know, when I was reading the history here, it was a vocal quintet formed in 1956, initially performing doo-wop music. So before George Clinton and his gang of brothers and sisters that made P-Funk, you know, before they got into, you know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, they were a barbershop
Yeah.
fucking quintet, like doing a cappella and shit like
That
that.
was the place to be, was the barbershop. That was like the hip cool. It still is sometimes, but yeah.
Yeah, and their barbershop was not only, I believe George owned the barbershop that they met in and obviously ran that business, but also was kind of this hangout for musicians and artists and, you know,
Mhm.
all of these vagabonds that came together to create new and innovative things. And like a lot of people starting out, I think we all know this feeling very well. They didn't find a lot of success. They didn't find they couldn't they couldn't they could not make. I think they only had one hit, and it really wasn't a hit, you know.
Mhm.
And so he kind of he went back to the drawing board, and luckily at the time, George was hired by Motown to become an arranger and producer and songwriter for a lot of the acts that they had. And that's when I think he started to really hone his craft. And that's when he was like, you know what? I'm going to try something different. And how Funkadelic came along. So I think that's the first thing we got to tell the good people. I think a lot of people get confused. And I remember
Yeah, it is
back in the
confusing.
day, yeah, back in the day, I was confused on which one was Parliament, which one was Funkadelic. So they are separate acts, people, good people. So Parliament, just a singular name, is one band. Funkadelic is one band. And then they would often tour and even create music together as Parliament-Funkadelic or just Parliament-Funkadelic, which later even evolved into, they often would, yeah, shorten that to P-Funk, as Miss Parsons already joked about. And then they would be like the P-Funk All Stars.
Yeah.
Or George Clinton, it would be like the George Clinton and the P-Funk All Stars is usually what the modern version of
One
their touring act is.
nation under the groove.
You know what's funny? I'm so glad you brought that up. That was the very first album I ever bought from them, was One Nation Under a Groove.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
I know there's probably a lot of P-Funk heads listening to this right now and being like, why aren't you fucking doing that one? Like, we'll get to that. I feel like One Nation Under a Groove and Mothership Connection are great albums, but there's something about Maggot Brain, you know?
I've heard a lot of people who love Parliament, especially up in New York and P-Funk. They're always like, "Oh, Maggot Brain, it's the best album." Like
Yeah, we
it was the
always go
last
back to
one they
Maggot
did.
Brain.
Yeah, it was the
Well,
last
it was the last, or it was the
last
last.
Funkadelic, right?
Yeah, well, it was the last Funkadelic album with all of the original members, because they went on
Yes.
to, it was only their third LP. Again, there's something about
Yeah.
the third LP.
A lot of
It was only their third
members.
LP. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's part of the history. Is so when the Parliaments, remember, separate from just Parliament,
Mhm.
went to tour to try to promote their music and try to, you know, help find an audience, and they still were quite unsuccessful. Well, they hired a backing band. So it was the quintet and then another 5 musicians, equaling 10. And they realized, you know what? Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's include some of these touring musicians. And that's how they became Funkadelic, right?
Yeah.
The bassist at the time dubbed them Funkadelic, came up with the name. And then they started to get experimental. This is when they found
They did a
the
lot of
sex, drug,
acid.
and rock and roll. Yeah, a lot of LSD and a
Mhm.
lot of experimentation. But the beauty of this, so they were formed in the late 60s, approximately 1968. But the beauty of this was, you know, as much as Funkadelic was raw and progressive and punk and just, you know, pushing the envelope, there was a side of George Clinton that was still like, you know what, I just want to write simple, fun, funky, four on the floor hits. And
Mhm.
that's why he rebranded the Parliaments to just be Parliament. And he used the exact same members. So it was like
Mhm.
10 to fucking 12. And they focused on, you know, let's make the hits. 4 on the floor, simple, traditional. And so that's when they, eventually wrote Mothership Connection and We Want the Funk. They wrote that one. Yep.
I feel like these two white people need to get the fuck off. It's like, sorry.
No, we're a little funky. I love me some funk. That's probably the whitest
It's a
thing.
state
Is that
of
when I say funky, that's so funky.
Yeah.
So Parliament went on to do that, and of course, Funkadelic went on to be that. Yeah, the other side of that coin, the experimental. Let's try a little of everything that Parliament is not trying, and they so as much as Parliament was more focused on the R&B kind of funk, a little more stable, a little more straightforward. Funkadelic was more on the psychedelic rock infused
Yeah.
funk. The eventually would become jazz fusion and hip hop and all these other forms that they kind of originated in a lot of ways. And then, like I said, as they evolved, eventually all these members came together to tour together in this huge spectacle of these live shows as Parliament-Funkadelic. Now, Parliament over their career made 10 studio albums as just Parliament. Funkadelic made 16, so that's 26 fucking albums. It's a lot of music.
Yeah.
And they were eventually, of course, given a lot of accolades for this. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2019 and was given a Grammy for Lifetime Achievement. So they did a lot of amazing things, but probably what I think, again, going back to our thesis of Maggot Brain, why Maggot Brain is being discussed today as opposed to all the others is I feel like it's this perfect cross-section of equal parts experimentation and everything that I feel like Parliament was still doing, but Funkadelic was pushing, and it came together in this perfect union that is this album, Maggot Brain.
And there's only 8 tracks or 6 tracks. How many tracks are on there?
No, yeah, not 8 tracks. It was 6.
6 tracks. 6 tracks on there.
I mean, excuse me, 7 tracks.
Mm-hmm.
There's 7 tracks total. Well, partly,
7
you
tracks.
probably feel that way because Maggot Brain, the actual title track, which kicks off the album,
with Eddie Hazel,
is with Eddie Hazel is in kind of an improv jam set. So it's not a traditional song. It's like a composition. Think of people jamming in the garage. But it's, and we'll get to this in a minute.
Yeah, okay.
It is.
I have a lot to say about it.
Yeah, it is. It's still a beautiful piece, an amazing piece, and groundbreaking in a lot of ways. But before we get there, let's take a little break. We'll be right back, guys. This episode is brought to you by novella Adulteration. Follow adult entertainer Jessica Amberstar as she embarks on a journey that will change her life forever. She not only finds herself in the industry, but figures out a way to transform herself and eventually become reborn. Find out how in Adulteration, which can be found on Amazon in both paperback and ebook, available now. Now back to the show. Okay, we are back, Miss Parsons, and now it's time to talk about Maggot Brain itself from top to bottom, as we like to do. Let's give the kids a little history lesson first. It was released on July 12th, 1971. It's short and sweet, but feels huge. It only clocks in at 36 minutes and 56 seconds, but feels like it's an hour long because of the production and the musicianship and the power. It was, of course, produced by George Clinton, and it was the final album, as already talked about, that was recorded by the original Funkadelic lineup. Now, as already talked about, the album is very rock heavy with a lot of psychedelic forms of rock and roll at the time with funk infusions, but it's also, God, when you really dig in there, it's a lot of things. It's gospel, it's folk, it's country, it's hip hop,
intellectual stream of consciousness.
Oh my God, and we'll get there. Actually, we can get there right now because the very first track is the album title. It is Maggot Brain, and I want to start with this. I want to start by asking you a little question.
Sure.
What is it? There's something about rock and roll. There's something about when artists infuse their sound with rock and roll that becomes transcendental. why is when artists do this, why is rock and roll so sexy, so seductive? Regardless of language and culture, like it is eaten up by the world internationally. But why do you think it's so attractive?
Because it's the sounds of the cosmos. That's what I think. Like, rock
Mm.
and roll tends to sound like a man, like, crying his soul out. Same thing with a lot of, like, you can say that about a lot of genres. But rock and roll itself is pretty much like almost like that. If you kind of separate, if you take a moment to step back and think about all of these wild sounds in our world, right? In our everyday world, and you hear the sounds of the galaxy outside, if you could, rock and roll is kind of like a cleaner version of that.
Mm.
That's kind of what I think. That's my stream of consciousness for you.
I've always been there's something a bit about this specific kind of rock and roll because it has a 12 bar blues and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of the birth of harder rock or heavy metal, things like that. Rock and roll that was made popular by Jimi Hendrix. We hear a lot of Eddie Hazel's guitar work in here that was clearly inspired by Jimi Hendrix. And there's something that is so moving
Mm-hmm.
about guitar work like that, especially the solo work, where I just feel, this is where I get really hippy dippy. This is like where I'm the closest to to being a true blue hippie, where I can close my eyes and feel so moved by the music.
Oh yeah. Oh, me too. Sometimes I'll listen to this album or mu- great albums in general driving. I'm like, you can't close your eyes. You're driving.
Yeah,
Like,
don't do it while you're
I don't
driving.
know
Makes
where
no
you're
sense.
driving, but
Yeah, call me old fashioned. You want to keep your eyes open when you drive.
like the first track on that album in general is supposed to be one of the most memorable guitar riffs in like history, some people say, because it's Eddie Hazel's like masterpiece.
It is yes. Let's dig in.
Mm-hmm.
Let's deep dive. So Maggot Brain is essentially a improv set by
Mm-hmm.
guitarist Eddie Hazel, and it's a long form solo. It starts with, and that is George Clinton talking about Mother Earth. So let's give the good people. I'm gonna recite it now. So,
Mm-hmm.
Mother Earth is pregnant for the third time. For y'all have knocked her up. I have tasted the maggots in the mind of the universe. I was not offended, for I knew I had to rise above it all or drown in my own shit. So I feel like this really sets the tone for the album. And we immediately get a very, very simple arrangement of it's an arpeggio of the eventual key he'll be using, Eddie Hazel, as he solos over it. And George Clinton has pushed it way into the background. You have to really turn it up this is purposeful. You have to really turn it up to hear the guitar melody, that do 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 do, over and
Mm-hmm.
over again. It's in three, or you can read it as 6/8 or triplets in common time, however you want to, hear it in your own mind.
Minors and major chords. Was that right? That's what I heard somebody say in an interview. Like
Well, I'm just talking
it's
about the rhythm theory right now.
okay.
So yeah, it's not written in just traditional common time, but you can listen to it that way because since the arpeggios and most of the music is designed in three counts,
Mm-hmm.
so 1 2 3, 1 2 3,
Mm-hmm.
so it can be 6/8, or they can be triplets that can be counted every four threes. Don't worry about that. That's not important. The important part is that now the drums, guitar line, the treble, and the bass, which is really just one note every bar
Mm-hmm.
of six, is pushed way into the background because it allows that guitar solo to annihilate
Yeah.
melt your brain with power. And when that comes in, then you're on the roller coaster ride. I liken it to this, since they like to use like, cosmology in their imagery and things like that. What George Clinton did for us was he invited us on their spaceship and he flew us to their very funky, funkadelic planet in a galaxy far, far away. And then we got to go out and have this amazing party of glitz, glitter, and LSD with them. that's how the album brings you in and takes you, because right after this, then we get into more traditional song structure,
Yeah.
because Maggot Brain is 10 minutes.
Except for the last song, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, the last song. This album is what's called bookended with two similar tracks. Maggot Brain is the improv, melt your brain guitar solo that changed guitar work forever, and then we get at the end a version of that that's a little more orchestrated.
I was listening to a couple interviews. It was interesting. They said that like how it starts with the minor and major chords, and apparently that's something that they say that you couldn't do together. And they did it, and then Eddie just like went off and created this like masterpiece. And when George is talking before that, and throughout it, when he's like, "Free your mind and your ass will follow," he's like, I just said that." He's like, I thought that was hilarious.
Free your mind and your ass will fall. You know, it's funny. That's my favorite album title that they've ever written.
That album, I have that album's fantastic. Free your mind and your ass will follow. The one with the woman, well, blue, and the woman with her legs up. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. That one's, is that the one you're talking about? That one's great.
Oh, yeah.
But he was just like, but then when you think about it, it is brilliant. Like, if you free your mind, yeah, your little butthole's going to come up and follow you. Like, like the visual, like when I was hearing it, I was like, yeah, he's right. And it is such an acid for people who have done acid or who haven't. It is something that does really free your mind, and your perspective. It's literally cliche. Your perspective does change. But like, I used to not like metal. Oh my god, metal is so much like classical music, because you'd hear a lot of metalheads say that. And you know, Parliament-Funkadelic is very much, if you strip it away, there's classical music in there, and then you have like classic jazz. You just have to like, where without those things you wouldn't have Maggot Brain. So yeah, I'm going off on a tangent, but
T-Buck Tangent Quarter, give it to us.
But that's like the whole point of the album too. Yes, it gets a little cleaner in certain parts, but it is supposed to like free your consciousness. That's why I'm letting myself just fucking talk, because that's kind of like the inspiration of George in itself.
And as legend has it, this was indeed done in one take, because what the historians say, the musicologists say, is that George Clinton, of course, under the influence of LSD, told guitarist Eddie
they
Hazel,
can't sleep, right? Or they couldn't shower.
I don't know that history of like them making the album, but he told him to play that solo as if he had been told his mother was dead. He instructed him to picture that day, what he would feel like, how he would make sense of his life, how he would take a measure of everything that was inside him and let it out through his guitar.
See, George is a director. I mean,
that's what a producer is.
That's what a producer is, but like the way he's like yes, that's what a producer is, but the way he like describes things is almost like a movie director, which makes sense because their performances are like watching like some psychedelic space show, you know.
And that again, so we are, as the audience, we are in the spaceship. We travel to their funky planet, and then we get to have the party with them, which leads us to track number 2. Can you get to that? Now, this one is very much a left turn from Maggot Brain, because now we're getting a little more country, get a little more folk, get a little more gospel, and I wanna know.
That song it's
vocal
featured
phrasing
in a lot
great.
of stuff too, and a lot of people.
Yeah, isn't this the track that
I sent
you sent me something, and it was some Patricia Arquette show?
It's a new show that's like coming out, and I was listening to the album again because I listen to it at least once a week in general, or just PFunk in general. So, and that came on like Instagram. I was like, it's listening to me. I was like, wait a minute, is that?
Yeah, our phones listen to us all the fucking time, and then know how to advertise.
Can you get that?
I want to know. I like that little baritone bass part.
So
but yeah, it's great.
It's clean. It's clean. That's almost kind of clean.
Yeah, this could have been a Parliament song. You know, it's very 4 on the floor, very straightforward, excellent, little piece of funky pop song structure. That leads us to track number 3, Hit It and Quit It. So when they're talking about hitting it and quitting it, Miss Parsons, are we talking about Sexy Time here?
I always thought this was the first song that I ever heard, and and then like I connected it to this album. You know,
Like,
like you hear the single, Hit It or Quit It. I'm pretty sure it's about
sexy time.
sexy time. Are we 80? It's about sexy time.
I like saying sexy time. I think it's funny. I think it's like cute, but you get your point across. So,
Some people say smash, and I hate when people say smash.
No, well, that's like fucking incel, YouTuber culture, because they're like saying smash or pass with like fucking
it's
Pokemon
I feel
characters.
like it's so degrading, but I've heard a lot of people say smash. I'm like, I fucking hate that word.
It's semantics. I mean, there's probably things that we all like that are probably degrading to other people. Probably Hit It and Quit It is kind of degrading.
I like that.
You like the Hit It and Quit It?
Well,
because like I guess it can be degrading in a way, because you're just saying like, well, I'm gonna sleep with that person and then I'm out. I'm bouncing.
Yeah, gotta hit it or quit it.
So yeah, another great track that of course features, remember, this is such a psychedelic rock infused album, so we're not only getting an amazing, I will say this, a killer organ solo in the bridge. In the second bridge, we're getting more face melting guitar solo work from Eddie Hazel.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought you were about to dive into something. Yeah,
no,
I'm just did that big inhale.
Oh no, I was scratching my back.
You're scratching your back. I want to know. That brings us to track number 4. I usually say, oh, let's hold our favorite album or song to the very end, but I'm just going to go ahead and say this is probably one of my favorites on the album is You and Your Folks.
Why is that?
My Folks.
Yeah.
I love the vocal arrangements, the yeah.
Oh yeah.
And you can really hear the DNA of hip hop here. I feel like a lot of artists in the 80s and 90s were like, ooh, let's borrow some of the ideas, put 100%. Our spin on it.
We'll get into
evolve
that in a minute too. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can hear it in the piano line, the rhythm section, and it's just like me and my folks and you and yo. It's just like I'm just like bouncing, fucking, singing it to you right now.
It is such rock, like funk rock music.
Yeah.
Like when you really like think about it and you step back, you're like, out of all of the albums, would you say you think this is the most rock?
This is the most rock?
Yeah.
Oh,
out of all?
No.
Okay.
God, no. Super Stupid is.
Super good. I was curious.
Super Stupid is the Jimi Hendrix like tribute song, pretty much.
Cool. I just wanted to see what you'd say. Cool. Okay.
Oh, well, did you think it was this one?
No.
What'd you think?
No. But I mean, it's very
I will
rock.
fight you, Miss Parsons.
No. I'm not great. Sometimes my brain with my dyslexia, like the names get muddled up in my head. That's why I have to write down notes all the time, or I'll like forget. So it was like Super Stupid. Yeah, I think you're right.
Oh yeah.
I think all of them are really, but yeah, this is one of the top rock.
Yeah, this
albums.
one is most like You and Your Folks, Me and My Folks. Yeah, this one is the most, rhythmic, and it has that bounce.
I wish we can play the
hip-hop
little tracks, but
we can't. I can't. I'm excited to maybe have some of your colleagues, some musicians, because if they own the rights to their music, then we can play their music finally.
Oh, they do. Yeah.
So we can actually play the music and like,
I hope
have
we
them play
can.
us out.
You will.
Kind of thing.
I have lots of musician friends that I can.
Oh man, hook it up.
Yeah,
bring them over. Let's party. Let's bring them over to the Mothership Connection, and we'll fly them over to Planet Maggot Brain and fucking do this shit.
That's so great.
With You and Your Folks and Me and My Folks. So come on, let's go.
No, I'm silly.
I want to know. So yeah, that leads us to track number. Yeah, I brought that up because I always say like, oh, I'm trying to be professional and be like, oh, let's hold our favorite thing to the end so people want to listen to that part, and then I forget it. Me and Buck just did a show, and I was like, oh, now save your song till the very end, and then I realized when I was listening it back, I was like, oh, we forgot to fucking talk about that. So
especially we're talking about these guys, man. We got to just go with the flow. We just got to like
let
our
the
juices
flow going. Yeah, I'm now we're on the topic, so I'm just gonna ask you right now, what is your favorite song on the album?
I'm
gonna forget. I'm gonna forget.
Can you You're like, what's wrong with this girl? I ask myself
No,
that
I love it. I love your
every
performances. No, I
day.
love it. No. Bring the Parsons bring this
Yes,
Parsons every time to every show.
Grandpa.
No. I want
I
this
would
every time.
say, can you get to that one?
Really?
Can you
Oh,
get to that, or hit
why?
it or quit it? It's just
Why?
so fun. It just uplift you. You're just like want to dance in the car and like.
That is true. Yeah. I get
I
it.
mean
Okay,
that
now I get it.
Wars of Armageddon, hilarious. Like I start cracking up on that, but it's not my.
That's like
it's not really
everything in the kitchen sink.
It's
Like
not
we're
really
just throwing
stuff.
in
It's
baby sounds and cows mooing and
just farting.
flatulence. Yeah, like
the farting cracks me up. Anyway, we're skipping
I
around a
remember.
lot.
Yeah, when I first heard that, I was like, I thought they were trying to do something else, and I was like, no, they're doing exactly that. No, I was wrong. Yeah, don't worry, we'll pull it back. Let's do Novo pull back
I think
to
hit it or
track.
quit it. I might
Hit
go
it or
back.
quit it.
I go back and forth, but hit it or quit, just because that was like the song that brought me to this album.
Yeah.
You know, and then that's what brought me to like, oh shit, yeah, this is Funkadelic. I'm like, oh shit, yeah, they're the same people. I was like, but they're not. Oh yeah.
Oh, I was
Collins.
confused.
Yeah.
I was confused all the fucking time when I was a kid. Actually, what brings me to another T-Book tangent corner. How young were you when you first learned of this outfit? That was Parliament-Funkadelic.
I always knew who
or
George Clinton. Oh my god, since I was little, like who's that crazy man with that amazing hair? Like you'd always
How
see
young
him.
do you think you were?
Well, I think because I always loved hip hop and rap, and like I was born 84. You were born 84 too, right? Like
85.
So 85.
Yeah,
So like,
close.
I'm older than you, bitch. So
Yep, you are. You're the wise one in the room now. Yeah.
So like, and I know that you would hear a lot of like those loop tracks that you would hear with Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and De La Soul. Me, myself, and I, like, oh, that thing, that's Parliament. So like, I think like, and then you would see that guy in the video, and you're like, who the fuck is this crazy man? And then you're just kind of like, I love the colors, and he always had purple in his hair. So I think I was probably like, I don't know, maybe like 13, 14.
I can strangely put a very specific timestamp on when I learned of not only the band, but George Clinton and the entire culture. I was 9 or 10 because I loved, when you're a kid, you don't know good movies from bad movies. So, of course, I liked a lot of really bad movies. And there was this movie that was trying to be Animal House. It was about it was a college story about these college kids. And the movie was called PCU. And I remember you did see it?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, it was it was funny because I remember distinctly, I have this memory as a young boy watching this movie, and then there's this part in the plot where I think they have to like have a fundraiser or something, to save the frat or some stupid fucking plot line. And of course, the only, the band they get in the movie is the real life George Clinton and his P-Funk All-Stars. And they go crazy being like, oh my God, it's George Clinton. And it's, oh, I love the P-Funk All-Stars and all this stuff. And I remember that really staying with me.
Oh, wow.
Like,
I love that. That's a great story.
I was like, who are these real people? Like, who is this just in the movie? Or are these real people? And in hindsight, it was clearly like the writer or the director was like a huge fan and just like shoehorned them into the plot. Like they could have because of the plot was so thin, they could have used any famous musician, right, to save the frat or save the whatever thing, but they used specifically George Clinton and the P-Funk All-Stars, and that always really stayed with me. So to this day, yeah, about 9 or 10 when he came onto my radar, and the rest, as they say, is history.
I love that. We should go around and ask more people, just like randomly record ourselves and be like, when was the first time that you
well, we're trying to get into for some extra content, trying to get in the habit of, if you have some time, I know you got to run after we do the show, of just kind of talking about everything and nothing, because we have all this energy from doing the really professional shows.
I would love to talk to you after the show, because I really don't want to go up to what I have to deal with at my parents' house. So
life. Let's pull it back.
Okay.
Yeah, let's pull it back to tell
like
the good people about track number 5.
Yes.
Super Stupid. The Jimi Hendrix sounding tune, the inspiration. Again, we have amazing guitar work again. I mean this riff.
Do the riff for us, because you're good at this.
I have to hear it. I don't want to
I know I'm
and
having a hard time hearing. I have to
well,
hear that,
yeah,
replicate it right
this
now too.
riff would make, the riff masters blush. The Jimmy Page and all those guys, and
Yeah.
even Jimi Hendrix himself. And this one was the most rocking. There was very little funk in this one. This one
It's
was
all
the
rock.
because we
Yeah.
just talked about it a minute ago when you were like, well, what do you think, Novo? And I was like, oh no, it's super stupid. I knew right away. I was
Is the
like, no,
most
this is the most
song
rockin' song
rock
on the
song.
album.
I was talking about album in general. What was the most rock album
Rock album in general? Oh,
of
any
theirs?
album?
Yeah,
Oh,
of
of
theirs.
theirs.
Yeah.
God, I don't. That's a good question.
That's what I
Ooh.
was saying, and I was like, I thought this is one of them, but I couldn't really think of like the
Oh
other
yeah,
albums. And then I
a
got
lot of
switched
the
over to
Funkadelic
songs.
ones. Well,
Yeah.
as they went on, they got a little more. I don't know, reserved. We could say because
Eddie
like One
Hazel
Nation.
wasn't in all of them,
Right.
right?
Well,
Yeah.
this is one of the last ones he was in, and like One Nation Under a Groove, we've already talked about that.
Yeah.
Was kind of like a Parliament album. Like it was more funky. It was more like kind of grounded,
Messy.
a little more
Yeah.
reserved. This one was so experimental. This was Sergeant Pepper's. This was let's take a bunch of drugs and write an album kind of album. Kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
which we like to cover on our show a lot.
Yeah.
Is the let's take a bunch of drugs kind of music and then write an album, and then we get to talk about it on the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
So yeah. Now I track number 6. How do you feel about back in our minds?
Right, my brain is drawing a blank, which is really embarrassing right now.
It's a little departure. I don't want to say a weaker entry in the album, but it is I have a feeling some people may skip this guy.
I never skip any song on the album
I
on that.
usually don't
It's so
because I feel like
short. It's like it's
oh
such a
yeah.
short, and I'm always like, it's over already, and then it goes to like other songs, and I was like, I want to listen to it again.
We
That's
are
exactly what I
back
sound like.
in our minds
Uh,
again. That one.
yeah, that song
Yeah.
is that's hip, that gets into the more hippie.
We are back in
And
our minds.
it's classic like 70s little hippie kind
Yeah,
of like
the vocal harmonies were
harmony. Sounds
very
like it'd be on like a
little
like
Motowny. That's why I used to write for
it was an
Motown. So,
homage to probably their roots.
yeah.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
no,
Thank
I
you
like
for
it. Good
helping me.
answer. Yeah,
Yeah,
good answer. No, I like
homage to
it.
their roots because it's coming towards the
Homage.
end. And like, hey, let's just do a little classic homage. It's our last. Did they know it was going to be their last album together? This one for Funkadelic?
No, God, no. That's part of the history I didn't want to dive into because we don't have all
No,
goddamn day.
I
They
watched.
got into. There's so many legal disputes in their history, and there were so many I was joking about them getting into drugs and stuff, and a lot of them really got addicted, and
Of
so
course they
that's
did.
why they would drop off the map. They would be like, oh, this guy's like addicted to this, and like we haven't heard from him in a month. Well, we got to move on. Like. This train's still going. We got to just,
Of course they. That's probably why gangster rap loved them because they're so. Gangster rappers were like
the show must go on, kind of. I know that feeling. I feel that way a lot. Where I'm like, sorry, the show must go on. Like we gotta keep going.
yeah,
So,
sorry you fell off.
tough titties.
Your
Yeah.
Somebody was saying the beginning of that makes sense, like with Maggot Brain, because I watched this really cool documentary on YouTube that was like, oh yeah, this is good. It was very like grainy as fuck, but it was so grainy. I was like, what am I watching? But he was saying like Maggot Brain, the intro going back to it with Eddie Hazel, it's like a man coming off heroin.
Oh,
like
yeah.
I was like,
Oh,
yeah, crying his heart out because I was like, they say that's one of the worst. I've never done heroin, y'all, but
They worked hard and played harder. Like these guys were like, the 70s musicians
you
that
kind of have
we
to
saw
be
in
comfortable
the drug
wearing.
revolution.
You have to be comfortable wearing that like polyester shit on stage and sweating for 8 hours.
I don't know. I like their look. I like their imagery. I like that they were like larger than life, with their use of science fiction. I know you're a sci-fi head.
I love it. It's just
and,
so fun.
But yeah, pull back. Track 6, back in our minds. It's very percussive. It has a really nice, complete band instrumental outro.
Mhm.
It's I don't want to use weaker entry, but I feel like you said it a lot better.
Everything was very
It
intentional.
was a classic Motown homage, very, very rich vocal performances and harmonies. And again, it was almost like, a lot of these things are still, though they're the people that were running the show are kind of mad hatters like George Clinton. There's a
Yeah.
lot of there's still a lot of thought and forethought and no coincidences kind of thing that goes into making these albums and also putting the tracks together. And it's almost, we probably needed a little break from Super Stupid, and we got that in back in our minds before we went into track 7 to end the album with Wars of Armageddon, which is everything. It is like everything
Every
they
time I
wanted to
listen
do
to
and
it,
say. It's everything.
every time that comes on and I'm driving, I just start laughing because you zone out, and then I'm like, "What's happening right now in my car?"
Oh man, it's like a little Easter egg hunt of all the little, it's like I said in the beginning, it's a lot like Maggot Brain in a way, because there was clearly these improvisational jam out sections, usually in the bridge, but it was a little more orchestrated, a little more grounded, a little more written before, ahead of time kind of thing.
Yeah.
With these like incredible drums and percussion and organ, and then they started bringing in the effects like the baby crying and the people yelling and the straight up fucking flatulence, even to small skits, which we later see in hip hop, in the
It's
90s and
very
2000s.
performance art, abstract.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
yeah, it's something that you go to the MoMA and you're just standing in like a room in black, and like some weird person runs by naked, and then there's all these sounds. Like that's kind of like what's
Like,
happening.
but then you're still like, no, that adds up.
Yeah.
That's on brand. That makes
Like-
sense. We have an instrumental bridge of this improv jam that includes cuckoo clocks and cows
So
mooing and
good.
trains railing, and it's all held down by a fucking cowbell. Like,
Oh,
it's
the constant cowbell. Like,
oh yeah.
that's
Oh,
like
yeah,
throughout
that
the
little
album.
click.
You hear the fucking cowbell.
And then we get like spoken word poetry too, like more power to the people talk, which is clearly
He
some guys.
starts with that and then he ends with it. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like this, like he's like, the snake eating the tail is coming full
Oh,
circle kind of thing.
Ouroboros. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know. Okay. Yeah, I like it.
Thanks.
And then, like you already joked about, then we get, at first I was like, what am I hearing? And I was like, no, they're just imitating straight up flatulence. Like, this is just, but with the more power to the people, a little spoken word poetry thing, I'm like, is it all flatulence? Is it queefing? I'm like, how far do I want to think about what they're doing? Like, how far do I want to go into this weird rabbit hole of
I hope it's
their art?
I hope it's queefing.
Is it like, I don't know, because he's talking about more pussy to the power and more,
He does. Yeah, he goes into
more
that.
pussy to the people,
More pussy,
and like,
more pussy, and
and I'm like, wait, what are we getting at here? Like, this is me trying to be really highbrow about lowbrow shit, where I'm like trying to really analyze the philosophy that is going into
He's
this song.
stream of consciousness.
Yeah, oh yeah. I think a lot of it is just like they were on drugs and they're just like, why don't we just do this? Let's just add this shit in. And it really but it again, this is still a lot of smart people in a room. It still comes together. And I even feel like, using my metaphor of us, the story of us, the audience, being taken up in their spaceship to go to this funky planet to party, it kind of ends with these effects of an explosion, or in my metaphor, the rocket engines, going off and us flying back down to Earth kind of thing. And then of course it circles back kind of to your point of like, the tail eating itself, Ouroboros, is it ends in with the sound of a heartbeat and a quick splice of the music before it allows to go back into Maggot Brain again. And that's where we're talking about it kind of made me think of the Mother Earth reference again.
That's what I was just thinking in my head too. Mother Earth has, what does he say? Mother Earth is
Mother Earth
my
is
brain.
pregnant for the third time, for y'all have knocked her up.
Yeah.
That's what he says.
Thank you.
I have tasted the maggots in the mind of the universe. I was not offended, for I knew I had to rise above it all or drown in my own shit.
He's a poet. I mean, he's a like original beatnik poet. I mean, he's very.
I know you love poetry.
I do. We do.
Click here to listen to our Leonard Cohen.
I would love to. We should do a poetry thing.
Ooh.
I have an idea. I'll talk
on
to you.
air. Pitch meeting right now.
Yeah, I'll talk to you about it after, because I was talking to my friend about some poetry stuff. But yeah,
I mean,
all music is most music,
It's
good
poetry,
music
yeah,
is
yeah.
poetry. Good
It's
music.
grounded in it, absolutely. So let's talk legacy. I feel like we would not have a lot of the music we have today without Maggot Brain.
No, we wouldn't. No, I that's like one of my conclusion talks is we wouldn't have because so many R&B artists and hip hop, the evolution of hip hop kind of came from P-Funk and Maggot Brain and Parliament, like all of those, and the rock bands too.
Hmm.
Like what so many like Red Hot Chili Peppers and
Oh,
Talking
yeah.
Heads. What's his name worked with Talking Heads?
Yeah,
You
that's why
knew
I
that.
said new wave in the intro, like, it kinda
Yeah.
led to that, and then it
The
led to
birth
the
of
hip
that.
hops in the
Yeah.
'90s or late
It's
'80s, '90s, G-funk, gangsta funk, we
yeah.
wouldn't have had that,
Dr.
with
Dre,
Dre and
Let Me
yeah.
Ride, Snoop Dogg, Murder Was the Case. Those are all looped. Ice Cube loves them. It's just
And George Clinton loved that he sampled their work because he would be like, "Well, another payday.
yeah.
Like, I get to go back on vacation
They're
while
like
you guys
Bootsy
sample my
Collins
stuff."
is always in like a lot of rap.
I love me some Bootsy.
Ugh.
I love his voice.
I
He
love
has
his
that
solo
voice.
that yeah, his
Yeah.
voice. Wait, I was gonna
Are you
try
gonna
to
do
do
Bootsy? Are you gonna do
I was
Bootsy
gonna
for
try
us?
to do it and I stalled. What does he always say? Yabba dabba doo.
I have to again, I'm a pretty good
Whatever.
mimic. I have to hear it. I have to kinda like when we did the, Hitchcock, show, and
Oh,
I
you
I
did
would
George.
imitate yeah, like, whatever his name was, the actor that he used over and over again. Since I, like,
Mhm.
heard it in my head so many times, I have to kinda practice too. I'm not Philip's really great at this. Philip can,
Oh,
like, just, like, pull it
he
out outta nowhere. I have to, like,
fucking
really
makes me
practice to
laugh.
do the mimics,
Yeah.
and do the impressions. We should just, like, all
I'll just be
try to
laughing
audition
the
for
whole time.
SNL.
We should
We need, like, a comedy,
SN Philip would be great on
skit troupe.
SNL.
We'll always do a T-Buck change the corner to give some praise to our peers and colleagues. No, we
Yeah.
love our team, but, before we go, we gotta tell the good people why. Why study probably not only Maggot Brain, but I would say all of P-Funk's full history sounded discography. Tell the good people why, Miss Parsons.
Because we wouldn't have the music we have today without them. At least as far as new wave and hip hop and um like all of like gangster rap, like if you really are like um love all of those, then you're just gonna naturally like I love Funkadelic and Parliament. It's just kind of like whether you realize it or not, you're gonna kind of love it. But if you also, I have a look came to my head. If you want to feel free and have a good time and really like let your soul fly, you got to listen to Funkadelic.
Oh, yeah. There
There
you
you
go.
go.
There
There
we
I
go.
go.
There we go. So
There
there
it
you have it,
is.
folks. There you have
There's the
it.
poet in me.
George Clinton and his Maggot Brain from top to bottom. I want to thank you for listening. Of course, I want to thank my guest, Miss Parsons, killing it as always.
Oh, I
Keep
try.
up the good work. I knew you succeed. But before we go, we got a little extra for you, a little cherry on top with what we call the gem of the week. If you're new to the show, don't know what the gem of the week is, it's something we like to talk about here at the end of our shows that doesn't always fit into the scheme of the topic. And that's why we got to talk about it here, because it may just be on our radar in the last day, last week, maybe last month, but we want to give it to you guys so you guys can dig deeper. Before we talk gyms, let's talk sponsors. Today's gyms are brought to you by Zencastr. Zencastr is our go-to tool for remote podcast recordings. What's great is that you can record separate audio and video tracks, and it's all backed up on a secured cloud, so you never lose your hard work. Even better, it's easy to use, and there's nothing to download. So go to zen.ai, that's zen.ai/Art of the Beholder, or just use promo code Art of the Beholder and get 30% off your first 3 months with a pro account. Now back to the gyms. Now you know what? I want to do kind of an indie music set of gyms today.
Oh, okay, me too. All right.
I didn't we didn't talk about this in our pre-show.
Mhm.
I think we should promote Indianola.
Oh my god, that's
Your
what I
boys.
was gonna say.
Let's promote some
All right.
Indianola. I
I
really did like it. I was like,
love
"Whoa, this
great.
is pretty good shit."
It's
Damn. I
yeah.
was like, well, I was
Owen
pretty floored
is
when you sent it to me.
a talented, beautiful man. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's I've and he's yeah. So I was it's funny, we did not talk about this, but that was gonna be my gem of the week, so we'll just
We'll
have the
share.
same gem
We're
of the week.
sharesies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad you liked it. He's so chill, really easy to talk to. He's super intellectual when it comes to, like obviously full of knowledge when it comes to music, and he's got such a great voice, like talking voice too, which like makes sense when you hear it. But his voice has really evolved, and you guys should really check Indianola out.
Now, before we go, tell the good people how they can get a hold of you.
Alexandra_Parsons is on my Instagram. You can always DM me, and Alexandra Parsons Designs at gmail.com if you want to email me. And there's a lot. AlexandraParsons.com if you want to just see my work.
There you go. Guys, you know what to do on our end. If you like that, you can always check us out at novodayproductions.com. I've said this a million, gazillion, billion, jillion times. You know where to get us, follow us at all our socials, like, subscribe, do all the things you want to be on the show. Reach out to us at novadaymedia@gmail.com. And until next time, you know what to do. We'll see you in the next one. So be good to each other. And as always, good luck and Godspeed. We love you.
Art of the Beholder is brought to you by Novo Day Productions. Created and hosted by Novo Day and the Novo Day Collective. Facebook.com/Novo Day Media, at Novo Day Media on Twitter and Instagram. Music by A Company. Facebook.com/ACOMusic123. ACO on Spotify. Logo design by Tom Justice, JESTUS, of thejusticecompany.com. And executively produced by Clayton Anderson. All rights reserved.